Hi guys, my name's Seb Tudor, I'm the man on the Silver Mountain, and welcome back. Now today I wanted to take a look at this article, because after my other video that I did the other day on, last week, on Harvey Weinstein, sexual harassment, the situation around everything, the confusion that's being caused by people mixing terms and doing kind of continually conflating different things and both using the words sexual harassment as both a weapon as well as a thing that's actually happened to them, or it rather interchangeably, then you've got stuff like this coming out from Buzzfeed. And I'm only really wanting to take a look at this because I've seen people online, friends, family, who have been looking at this and trying to hold it up as some kind of example. When Mireia Gonzalez, who is apparently a Buzzfeed staff member from Mexico, doesn't seem to really understand what harassment is. And so I wanted to go down this list of things, the have you ever, as you can see down at the bottom there, to go and actually break this down, because these don't make... There are some on this list that are legitimate, but very few of them are. And yet her disclaimer here: this checklist isn't an exhaustive, comprehensive outline of what constitutes sexual harassment. It's meant to be an exercise to get people thinking about the kinds of behaviour that are sometimes normalised but do in fact constitute harassment. One problem: no, they don't constitute harassment. An awful lot of things on this list have nothing to do with harassment at all, and we'll get into that in a minute. But also, if it isn't an exhaustive and comprehensive outline of harassment, which, by the way, can, as we did in that other video, be summed up in one sentence in terms of the legal kind of definition of harassment, be it sexual or otherwise, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's actually pick this to pieces, because I'm terribly sorry, Mireia, you're wrong. But anyway, have you ever looked at her in a way that made her visibly uncomfortable? Well, that means that anyone who's told off someone who's female, which of course you shouldn't do, because apparently, according to BuzzFeed, women can do no wrong. But if you've ever had to tell someone off for doing a bad job, tell someone off for doing something wrong, then you're probably staring someone down. You're looking at someone in a way that is making them visibly uncomfortable. In which case, this is such a broad thing here, then it catches apparently everybody under sexual harassment. But there's one problem as well: looked at her in a way. So you've done it once, in which case potentially either it was a one-off thing and that was the end of it, or she asked you to stop and you did, in which case no harassment, because it's not ongoing, systematic, methodical, continuous, in which case, number one, not a thing. But we want to see what result we get at the end. So, have I ever looked at someone, female, in a way that made her visibly uncomfortable? Yes, because I was a boss and I was telling someone off because they were doing a shit job. Looked at her breasts while talking to her? Yes. I mean, that's a thing that men are programmed to do. That's a thing that certain women are programmed to do as well. It's a thing that we are all programmed to do. We scan each other's bodies. We look for patterns to recognize who we're talking to. It's why in things like gaming and TV, individual characters having different silhouettes is an important thing. It's why costume departments exist. So, have I ever looked at someone's breasts when talking to them? Yes, if they've asked me to stop, or if I've not necessarily been glaring at them, which would be harassment because it would be continuous. But glancing down, seeing that they happen to be there, and then looking away, or if they just happen to be in my face when I turn to talk to such and such a person, again, this is too broad, because a couple of these things that allow me to fall into this situation are in no way harassment, because they aren't continuous, they're not systematic, and at times they are certainly not unwanted. So, I'm sorry, that doesn't constitute harassment either, but there we go. Stolen a kiss. Well, there's always has to be someone who initiates a kiss. It's only harassment if, when they say, no, I don't want that, you continue. It's only sexual assault and so on if you continue after refusal, after rejection, after there is someone said no. Yeah, in which case you apologise. But also, there has to be an initiator. Whether it's them or you, flip it round. Has a girl ever stolen a kiss from me? Yeah. In which case, were they harassing me? No. Were they sexually assaulting me? No. That's ridiculous. But there you go. Follow the woman you're interested in, even if you don't know her. Now, again, this is very broad. Are we talking about stalking, like hoodie up, late night, walking down the street, following someone that you've never met before, but she's kind of attractive? Or are we talking about, I filed out of a meeting and there's this attractive girl in the office and she was ahead of me, so technically I'm following her? Again, it's very broad. Yeah? You can when you've got such broad descriptors, such broad definitions, then it's easy to suggest that everyone is sexist, everyone is racist, and everything is terrible, when it's not. There are legal definitions for a reason. There are definitions that kind of constrain things for a reason. And so, again, like this can be a crime. It can be stalking and harassment. Again, if it's continuous, if it's in an inappropriate place. But finding someone attractive and by chance having to follow them doing something, walk in the same direction as them, whatever else, doesn't necessarily constitute this. So, have I ever done this? Let's go by the tightest definition, which is actually stalking. No. Spied on an ex in any capacity, including cyberstalking. Well, if you're including cyberstalking, then that means typing their name into a search engine, even though that doesn't affect them, has no impact on them, and is only something that recurs for your in your kind of perceptive area. That's too broad, because harassment doesn't include search engines. That's essentially thought crime. Yeah, me typing in an old friend's name in Facebook, be they male or female, just to look up who they are, be they a school friend, be they someone I used to work with, doesn't mean I'm harassing them. So doing that to someone that I maybe went out with at some point doesn't equate. So, but if we're talking about intercepting their mail or whatever else, then, you know, again, that is a legitimate crime. But again, definition too broad. Would I say I've done it to anyone, an ex especially? No. On a girlfriend in any capacity? No. Now, this is the thing. If you're spying on your girlfriend, checking her phone and plugging into her emails and stuff like that, then that's kind of daft anyway. It suggests a lack of trust and an unhealthy relationship. But again, also cyberstalking. Checked my girlfriend's Facebook earlier today. Does that mean I checked her profile? Why? Well, she'd commented about me, but I typed her name into a search engine. So does that mean... Was I doing this? No, of course I fucking wasn't. It's ridiculous. Again, it's broad. If you're legitimately putting tabs on people, then yeah, sure, fine. You're bad. You're legitimately kind of tracking people, but again, it's usually kind of, let's spin this round. Let's do the flipping it round the other way. If a girlfriend was actively going through her boyfriend's phone due to lack of trust, or looking up his Facebook page or Twitter to see who he was communicating with, then that would surely... Does that constitute harassment? Because if it does, then, you know, there's an awfully large case on both sides here, I feel, from some of the dysfunctional relationships that I've bared witness to. So, again, it depends on the severity of the spying, or what is meant by spying. It's too broad. But have I done this? No. If I'm interested in something, then I'll ask my girlfriend. I trust her enough to tell me the truth. So, you know, there you go. And same with me. I'll chuck my phone at her if she really has to be interested in something. but made a comment about her body when she didn't ask you to. So compliments have to be asked for. They can't just be spontaneous and nice. You know, my girlfriend turning around and she's wearing new jeans and me going, your bum looks really good in that. In those. I mean, hair is part of the body. I've got a co-worker comes in and they've had a haircut and it's like, wow, your hair looks great. You didn't ask me to make that comment. But it's about part of her body. Something completely non-sexual, really. Hair. Well, to me, anyway. But, you know, that's, again, not harassment unless it's systematic and continuous. Sorry. Find out what the definition is before you start making these stupid articles that make no fucking sense. Touched a woman you know without her consent. Yes. I patted someone on the shoulder to get their attention. Given them a pat on the back for doing a good job. Grab them by the shoulders for dramatic effect when something is supposed to be shocking. I mean, there was no time for consent. Nothing specific, nothing in writing, nothing verbal. But was that harassment? No, because if they'd asked me not to, then I wouldn't have done. Because it's systematic or continuous, and it wouldn't be. It would be a one-off, pat on the back, well done, good job. Excuse me, can I get your attention? Yeah? It's a simple, straightforward touch. Again, though, did those women care that it was me touching them? No, probably because I came in, I was positive, I was open, and all I did was one touch and it was gone, whether it was with consent or not. This, again, is too broad and makes no sense. Touched a woman you don't know without her consent. Well, yes, again, occasionally it is necessary to communicate physically. Tapping on a female security guard's shoulder or a member of bar staff's shoulder when a club or something is too loud and you need their help. Yeah? Going and showing appreciation, patting someone on the shoulder and going, thank you very much for your help. You've got as much of a broad spectrum here as you did with the last one. Doesn't make the slightest bit of sense because, again, physical interaction is as much part of communication as verbal communication is, as tone is. And so, yeah, these things are going to happen. I'm sorry, they don't qualify as harassment. They are not harassment unless they are continuous, systematic, kind of continually intrusive. Someone coming up to someone and literally just tapping them on the shoulder to get their attention. Like putting a hand on their arm just to say thank you. How many women go up to each other and to say thank you will just place their hand on the forearm of the person that they're talking to, or over their hands, just, you know, thank you very much, and then they'll move off. I see it all the time, especially amongst people from older generations, and that's a woman doing it to a woman. That woman just sexually harassed that other woman. No, it's bollocks. It's a form of communication. It's a form of bonding, for God's sake. There's a biological chemical element to it. Took photos of her without her knowledge or consent. This one, legitimate potential crime. Like, if you're doing it, like, without her knowledge, without her consent, and all the rest of it, and it's a specific picture of her. I'm not saying you've taken a picture of a public place, like a high street, and she just happens to be in the crowd. Taking a picture of someone directly, without their knowledge, without their consent, yeah, I'm fairly, considering that you're likely to be continuous with it, either sexual harassment or stalking or something to that effect, yeah, that's going to be a crime. Well done. We've found one that's actually fairly well defined. So that's so far, I think, one thing in this article, maybe two if we're actually going to narrow down on the spying and the following. Maybe if you genuinely kind of shrug off the vagueness that they've put into this, so that you can focus on it. Shared intimate pictures that she sent you without her consent. Again, this is part of the grey area of the modern world, but again, dissemination of those images in a again, systematic fashion to people, sticking them up online and stuff like that, like genuinely you going out and sharing them, yeah, there are lawsuits going on and have been lawsuits going on, either high profile and low profile, around these kind of things, and yeah, that's a crime. Don't do it. Shared or threatened to share intimate pictures that she sent you. Well, again, that kind of falls into the other thing, but again, heat of the moment, having an argument, and you throw that out there, dick move, not harassment. Going and doing it again systematically, continuously, as a repeated thing, then yeah, guess what? That's a problem. That is a crime. Insisted on asking her out even though she already said no. Well, in this case again though, how many times is too many times? Because you could ask someone out and they could say no once. And then you could make the situation might change and you could ask them out again, potentially with a substantial period of time in between. Does that still mean that the second time constitutes harassment? I'd say if you are asking them out every single day, every single week, and then not just saying no, but making it clear, yeah? Because no, again, one word, depending on the tone, depending on the way it's put across, can mean all kinds of things. In which case, though, it comes down to everyone learning to speak plainly, that being nice and letting people down softly is not always the easiest and best way to do things, but more specifically, insisted on asking her out even though she already said no. Well, that in this case we're being specific, that you've asked her out again after she has already said no once. So if she said no because she was in a relationship and you weren't aware, but then that breaks down and you ask her again, is that still harassment? This is too specific. And it doesn't make the slightest bit of sense. But have I ever asked anyone out, like, more than once? Yeah, because situations change over time. Because hope and persistence will continue if things change. Especially if you genuinely care for that person, then yeah, you might want to try that again. But again, if it was, say, an attractive guy, would that make the difference whether it was harassment or not? I mean, I've been asked out by women on more than one occasion. Were they sexually harassing me? I know that's hard to believe because I look like Sasquatch, but that's not the point. But even tried to hook up even though she may have been too intoxicated to consent. Now, personally, I feel like this is like an interesting area, because if she may have been too intoxicated to consent, then might you have been as well? If you're in that kind of environment, in which case tried to hook up might have been a thing, but it's also tried to hook up. There's still more than enough area there for a no, a respectful fair enough, and a move away. This is even interacting with this person, this woman who is apparently intoxicated, is too much. Yeah? Even if you're intoxicated too, there is too much here. Interaction, as soon as there is intoxication and people cannot consent to whatever, then there should be a divide drawn. If it had been like force the point, something like that, then that's harassment. Again, trying once, that's not harassment. It's not continual, it's not systematic, it's an instance, which could lead to something bad. I'm not saying it couldn't, but then it's the something bad that needs to be addressed, not the initial, like, just going up and talking and interacting with someone in a way that you would like to interact with them. Now, personally, have I done this? No, but then again, I tend to be the sober one. I don't drink, and so when it comes down to these kind of environments, do I try doing that? Have I ever really tried doing that? I can't really say that I have. Just because it's a case of because I'm so sober, I'm the one that's observing everybody else and amusing myself at their expense. Manipulated her into sleeping with you. Well, again, manipulated how? Would Because this is where, again, we get flip sides to things. Because that's vague. Give us some examples of what that means. Yeah? And there are some manipulative people out there. They're miserable, miserable assholes. Serial cheats and people like that who continually get people into bed with them. But then, if that person was attractive and she had consented and all the rest of it, would his manipulations still be counted as manipulations that counted towards harassment? Or not? Because she was on board with it, even though it was manipulation that got her there. Like, that's, again, very vague, very broad. But again, a manipulation towards consent still gains consent. So it's as much as I don't like to stick up for these people, as long as there was consent, it doesn't matter how, like if the manipulation was actual social manipulation, talking and kind of playing the pickup artist game and whatever else, but not forcing it, then there you go. If you're talking about the kind of manipulation that happened with Harvey Weinstein, though, then yeah, that's an abuse of authority, which in and of itself, especially within the states that have quite harsh laws on some of these things, especially in regards to authority figures, then yeah, it's a crime. But again, the word manipulated used here without any specifics given is very broad and doesn't appreciate nuance, which is part of the problem with these things. But have I done it? No. I don't see the need. I'd much prefer to be as honest and upfront as I am with you guys with anyone else. Asked about her sex life unprompted. Yeah. I mean, I have female friends. They turn around and ask me about my love life and my sex life. So, at times during a conversation, I may very well do it back without a prompt. Just as a continual flow of a conversation, but she happens to be female, but that means that it's sexual harassment, right? If you're talking about going and doing it to a stranger, then yeah, that's creepy. But again, it's not harassment unless, again, it's systematic and continuous. Methodical. But here it's again, broad. It's labelling everybody that does this, men and women. That's the thing that stands out to me. This is directed at men. But it's men and women that are going to be taking this, and it's going to just flatten all of these people if they take this seriously, when they shouldn't be, because half of these things aren't at all the correct definition for what they're suggesting here. Threaten a girlfriend so that she won't end the relationship. No, threatening people tends to result in the opposite of that. Like, there's a bit of a problem when you're resorting to threats for that kind of thing. But again, a threat said in the heat of the moment that is not followed up on, that was just words, doesn't constitute harassment or assault or anything like that. If it's a threat that happens again and again and again, then yeah, that's abuse. But that's where the line is drawn. Still, forbade her from going to certain places. Not that I recall. Like, what would be the point in that? Unless you're specifically saying, that's my parents' bedroom, don't go in there, from like being young. or something like that, like literally just enforcing limits, which I don't think this is talking about. I think this is a bit more concentrated and adult than that, or at least I'd hope so. Probably not. But yeah, forbidding her from going certain places. Well, no, she's allowed to do whatever the hell she wants. If you are actually imprisoning someone to one extent or another, then that is a crime. That is an abuse. But again, like in general, again, one-off, a reinforcement of rules or something like that. If you are an authority figure, if you are a boss, and you're like, you can't go into that back room for any reason, then it's within. In fact, no. Do you know what? I've told people that they're not allowed in the back office. I've told women that they aren't allowed in the back office because we're busy on the shop floor. So I have done this. I've forbade them from going to a place. Not in any serious capacity in terms of it didn't matter which gender they were, because I was also shoving all of the other men out onto the shop floor to do the same thing. But hey ho. Forbade her from wearing certain kinds of clothes. Yes, I have, because work uniform. I have had to enforce uniform standards on people, in which case, yes, I have done this. Again, though, that's not what they mean, but the way that this is put forward is so broad. So and as much as I would be doing it to men as well, there you go. Just demonstrates the kind of joke that we've got here. But is that harassment again? If it's systematic, if it's without cause, if it's kind of continuous, then yeah. But would it be in the workplace? Because there were some people that wouldn't ever go for uniform standards, and so they would have to be continually and repeatedly told off and forbade from wearing the things that they were wearing, being given more uniform to go and change. Not in front of anyone. Go off to the changing rooms and down to the toilet, whatever else, and just get changed into the uniform that you're supposed to be wearing. But it's a thing that again, there's no nuance in what's been said here. And it wouldn't be just me, it would be female management members as well, doing exactly the same thing to male and female staff. So it's, again, there's no nuance here, there's no appreciation of the differences. Forbade her from talking to specific people. Not in a social setting, not in a private setting, but again, yes, I have told people not to stop chatting until when there is a queue of people waiting to be served and stuff like that. So, strictly speaking, to the word of that, yes, I have told a woman that she's not allowed to speak to a certain person. That's the way it is. I'd be telling guys to do exactly the same thing, but that doesn't matter in this situation, apparently. It's so broad. Have I done it in my private life? No, there's no point. Told someone she was harassed because of the way she dresses. No, but telling someone that means you're a dick. It doesn't mean you're harassing them unless you are, again, systematically, continuously repeating it again and again and again and again in such a way as to cause the harassed effect. Saying it once means you're a dick. It doesn't mean you're harassing those people. Have I ever said it? No, because that's that. We're all born equal. We're all born naked. The way you dress. Yeah, you can take power from the way you dress. You can have your own appreciation and whatever else, and that can be perceived by other people in different ways. And you should be prepared for those perceptions, because it should be bloody obvious based on what you're wearing how other people would normally perceive it. But again, taking action on that means you're a dick. It doesn't, even if you're the one doing the harassing, like catcalling and things like that, that means you're a dick. It doesn't mean you're harassing those people unless it is continuous. Offered her a job because she's hot. Nope, quite the opposite. I've literally turned people away from jobs because they're the only good attribute they seem to have was their attractiveness. They may have been very attractive, but they might not have been able to do basic mathematics, to communicate effectively, had no experience, and so as a result they didn't get the job regardless of them being attractive. I know managers who have done quite the opposite. Tried to hook up with her and only stopped when you found out she had a boyfriend. No, actually. My Hannah, in fact, can attest to this to one extent or another, that I have very strong boundaries on those kind of things. But again, this isn't harassment unless it's continuous up until that point. And the fact that it says that you only stopped when you found out she had a boyfriend still means you stopped. You might have been a bit more of a dick and not taken no for an answer initially, which means you are a dick. But it doesn't mean it's harassment, because the next words out of her mouth after she said no the first time could have been, I have a boyfriend. So again, this is too broad. Failed to get explicit consent before sexual contact. Define explicit. is a girl jumping on top of me and pulling my clothes off explicit consent? Or is that sexual harassment? Sexual assault? Is it? I want to know. But define explicit. I'll click it, because explicit in terms of a signed written contract and verbal consent on camera is not something that regularly gets achieved. In fact, I don't think that's ever been achieved in my instance. So we'll go for that. But again, explicit meaning what? Because this is where we fall down in these rape and sexual harassment cases, where it's just he said, she said, because explicit consent is a hard thing to properly quantify. Made sexual remarks about a woman with your friends. Yes. I mean, there's an element of that in an awful lot of media as much as anything else. So, at times making sexual remarks, again, what kind of sexual remarks? Are we talking observations about sexual characteristics? Information about our own sexual escapades with women? Let's spin it around the other way. What about sexual remarks made by women about men? Are those also harassment? Like, that's again, sexual remarks. What do we mean by this? It's very broad. Like saying, that person, that girl, that boy, whoever, they've got an amazing arse. Love that backside. Love to see him leave. Yeah? In which case, that's an observation on what your perception of that person is. And you're sharing it with a friend who may very well agree with you, disagree with you, whatever. But that's not straight up harassment, because it's not acting on that individual unless you are making a show of it. And also, if you're going, can't wait to see more of Daenerys, because quite frankly the scenes where she's just walking around nude are amazing. Like, that's again not harassing Emilia Clarke, the actress. That's appreciating the work she's put out there and making an observation on it based on your own preference. You know, it's so this is so broad. It doesn't make any damn sense here. Told women who say they're harassed every day that they're exaggerating. I mean, I've never said that. Some women, I'm sure, are harassed every day in the settings that they are in, as with some of the people who have come out in regards to certain people in Hollywood and whatever else. Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if being harassed every day is the actual situation. People who I've seen harassed every day and who haven't been at all, though, and they are using it as a bargaining tool, a place to get leverage from, way to play victims so that people help them more, sympathise with them more, even though they don't deserve it. You know, that's again, it's swings and roundabouts. We've got so many people playing the professional victim and wanting to use these kind of big issues as leverage and ways to spin on people they just don't like. It does mean that then when it comes down to people who make these statements, who may very well be honest and truthful and have evidence of the fact, they're not taken seriously, because you've got so many people jumping on this bandwagon on things that don't constitute harassment or abuse, but just it's stuff that they don't like, you know. Felt betrayed when a woman you go out with doesn't end up sleeping with you. No, that's not why I go out with women. Same, and I know that's the same for an awful lot of other people, because they go out to have fun. This is, again, very broad. But there are going to be people who do. Again, nice guys and assholes. The people on the extreme ends of the scale of people. Both men and women. It's not gender or sex specific. So that's a very broad set of traits that you're throwing in there. You know, felt betrayed. Well, again, like, it makes you an arsehole, but you're allowed to feel your own emotions. You know, this doesn't mean that you're acting on them. I'm sorry, feeling your own emotions isn't harassment. If you then decided to genuinely harass that person, insult that person, verbally or physically abuse that person as a result of this feeling, then yeah, that's a crime. But just feeling it, sorry, that's bollocks. That's your own feelings. Thought crime isn't a thing. It can't be monitored, and it won't ever really be monitored. So you can't take that on as a situation. I'm sorry. Doesn't count as harassment. Try to hook up with one of your students. Again, this doesn't necessarily count as harassment if everyone is above the age of consent. And in some instances, there are certain states in the US, for instance, that do have clauses relating to people in authority, including and especially including people like bosses and lecturers, in regards to this kind of thing. And it's basically, you're not allowed to have it, not allowed to touch it. But again, try to hook up with one of them. In and of itself, consenting adults and all that, not actually harassment, not necessarily even against the law, could be against the policy of the place that you're teaching, in which case that opens up a different set of issues, but it might not be sexual harassment. Unless the trying is continually refused and you are systematically and continually trying to win them back, or not even win them back, but hook up with them initially. But otherwise, no, that doesn't count. I don't think I've ever really been in a full position as a trainer, teacher, or whatever else that has then put me towards this situation, so I can't really say that. Tried to hook up with one of your employees. People work together, and especially when they're working together, a lot of the time they tend to get close, in which case hooking up with a person who is technically your employee within a larger company structure may very well be a thing that happens. Again, not necessarily harassment, not necessarily any form of abuse unless it is continuous or systematic, but could be against company policy, in which case that's where the issue arises. But for the most part, I have done that. I have, at times I've said before, I have worked 12 hours, 16-hour days for several like days and days in a row. Rather unsurprisingly, working at those jobs was very much basically just by living there. And so as a result, only leaving to go and sleep, basically. And so as a result, yes, I grew very close to some of the people that were there. In which case, yes, that was a thing that has happened. Who'd have thunk? People in strenuous, close-knit situations trying to generate relationships with one another. Who'd have thought that would happen? Humans being humans. Try to use your position of power to hook up with someone. No, now that's a bit scummy. And again, in places like the United States, especially, that is a crime. Like on the books as a law. Using you being in a higher position of power to someone that you try and hook up with is a crime. But, for instance, I'm the lead singer of a band, as a way to impress someone. It's a position of power, potentially. You're impressing someone, and you're using that kind of impress ability to potentially try and get into that person's pants, be they a boy or girl. So, it's not always harassment. Sometimes it's just a straightforward part of the way that we try and impress each other and generate status. So, apologise to a man for flirting with his girlfriend? No, because flirting is, again, but in and of itself isn't necessarily a negative thing or a harassing thing. I'm not harassing the man by having a conversation with his girlfriend that may very well have some good humoured flirting in it. Encourage two women to kiss. maybe applauded them for doing so, or cheered them on, encouraged. Sort of maybe. I'll say yes. As a call on for certain parties and clubs and things like that I've been to. So yeah, I'll go with that one. But again, is that harassment? Not unless you've literally manufactured the situation and they weren't doing it of their own accord and you're forcing them into it. But then that's a different kind of abuse that's beyond harassment, I feel. So yeah, again, harassment not really seen here because it's not seemingly systematic or continuous, unless they're like two females and you're like, you should kiss, you should kiss, you should kiss, and it's again and again and again and stuff like that in the moment, in which case that could be construed as harassment. I think that would be a kind of grey area on the borders of it, but it's something that would come up, as that. Inappropriately touch someone you're dancing with her consent, without her explicit consent. What does inappropriately mean? That's where this comes down to, because again, in clubs you can potentially end up dancing with anyone. If they start grinding against you, are you not supposed to touch their hips? Are you supposed to back away by 5 feet in a crowded club where you can't move anyway, you can barely breathe? Is like if inappropriately is just physical contact between, I don't know, my pelvis and hers, then without anything else, then I think almost everyone is guilty of that to one extent or another, unless they're some kind of Puritan or have never been clubbing. But without explicit consent as well, again, how are you supposed to, like, what constitutes explicit consent in a club environment or in a dancing environment? Like that needs more definition on two fronts. Believe that a woman is a slut based on the number of sexual partners she has had. No? Not at all. Like, again though, belief is an internal personal thought and isn't harassment. So even if I had, that's not harassment unless that's acted upon. Like going and jeering at someone, yelling at someone, stuff like that. That's that would be harassment. Continuous kind of jeering and harassing someone in that way. Believed that someone's a slut. Well, that's internal. That doesn't affect anyone else. In which case, that's not harassment. Sent a picture of your genitals when she did not ask for it. No. Again, sending. I mean, it's a literal dick move if you do. But again, for the most part, it's a case of, well, surely exchanges like that should, people should be aware of those exchanges, even if you're very close, because otherwise, let's just say that those pictures may very well turn up in the wrong situation on their phone when they're talking to their mother. They just pop up big on the screen. I'm sure that's something that even if you are very close with that person, I'm pretty sure you wouldn't be shortly after that. So no. Blamed alcohol for your behaviour around women. I don't drink. But even so, is alcohol an excuse? No, I don't feel alcohol is an excuse. But what behaviour? Considering that about give or take half this list doesn't constitute harassment or abuse or assault or anything like that, if this is the behaviour that you're alluding to, then you don't even need to blame alcohol for it, because it's not harassment or abuse or anything like that to one degree or another. As with internal thinking and interactions like, where was it? Touching someone. There you go. Touching people without their consent, but it's a case of, well, that's too broad. Kept your mouth shut about a friend who has abused someone. No. I tend to be quite vocal about those kind of things, to the extent that it's lost me friends. on numerous occasions, and often ignored by the people that I'm actually talking to, who are being abused by that individual. So there's that, but also just keeping your mouth shut. That's not harassment. That's actually inaction. Arguably, it would potentially, holding your tongue would be a sign that maybe you're not the best friend. You're supposed to stick up for your friends, try and inform them, do the best for them as best you can, even if they're not gonna like it. But again, like inaction in this instance, just keeping your mouth shut about a friend who has abused someone. What kind of abuse are we talking here? Is the abuse, again, some of the stuff early on? Have they confided in you that they believe that someone is a slut? Because that's internal thought and an expression thereof. It's not, it's not a nice thing to say, but it's not actual abuse. It's neither harassment nor abuse as defined by the law or reality. So, no, that's that. I haven't kept my mouth shut about actual abuse, but again, even in regards to this list, it's not really a thing either way. Sent a link to a porn video without her asking for it. No, I don't think so. Not that I can recall. I think I'm pretty sure, again, as with pictures of genitals or any not safe for work picture generally, I think what it comes down to is always going, can I send you something not safe for work? Even if you don't specify what it is. Like, making sure that they're aware of what's coming to an extent is just polite at the best of times, or even at the worst of times. And so, sent her a link to a porn video without her asking for it? No, not specifically. But again, even if it was, unless, again, as with some of the things that we've been hearing about some of these high-profile cases in the States where it's been sending more and more every day, then, that's harassment because of its continuous nature. But in regards to if you sent that once, and then that person said, please don't ever do that again, and then you never did, not harassment, not systematic, not continuous, just really poorly thought out. So anyway, let's take a look at these results. Your behaviour is part of the problem of harassment against women. Who'da thunk? In the US, 1 in 6 women will experience an attempted or completed rape in their lifetimes. And a 2015 survey showed, do these lead to other Buzzfeed articles? That's the question. Because there are at least 2 or 3 of these statistical reports that keep being brought up that aren't accurate based on Department of Justice and like FBI figures and things like that, and they've been misconstrued. This claims to be Department of Justice, so okay, we'll give the first one the benefit of the doubt because I don't have time to dig into it right now. But this one's a Cosmopolitan article. Where is... And it's just an infographic, seemingly from Cosmopolitan. This article was originally published as... He said what at work, March of 2015. Okay. Can we take a look at the image? Doesn't want to... Oh, here we go. Right, let's... Okay, fine. Doesn't want to let us take a look, but we'll give the first one the benefit of the doubt. The second one maybe not so much. If you checked at least one of the boxes listed above, you've engaged in behaviours. So if you click even one, so communicating physically, thinking thoughts. What else we got? Looking at someone in a way that makes them uncomfortable when their own internal comfort shouldn't be relational to people's to their perception of other people's like appearance. Sometimes it is just their face. Stolen a kiss, so initiated any kind of romantic contact, even with someone that is consenting, by the way. Made a comment, be it of any sort, seemingly, about her body, even if she didn't ask for it. So even compliments, all of these things. If you've done any of them, then you're bad. You're terrible. How could you? Oh. You've engaged in behaviours that, to a greater or lesser extent, have made women feel uncomfortable and in danger. Usually the opposite of the feedback that I get, honestly. But hey, who knows? Maybe it's not as cut and dry as they seem to think it is. Examining, learning to speak, examining and eliminating these behaviours can help you improve your relationship with women, but above all, it will help create non-hostile environments where women can live without fear of being themselves. Okay, well, guess what? The world is hostile. That's the way it is. Whether we are completely placid and peaceful, the world is hostile. It's an ever-changing environment where conflict generates growth. If you cannot engage in that conflict to further grow, then you're going to run into problems anyway. There are many ways of invariably dealing with that, but in regards to what you're saying here is you're over exaggerating and over labeling things purely to try and make a point, truly trying to just push down everybody else for no reason. Like this is bizarre and absurd, I think would be the way to describe it best. But yeah. Again, okay, so hold on. Let's take an actual look numerically. So not harassment, could be harassment, so that's 1. Could be harassment, 2, 3. Made a comment about not generally speaking. Touched a woman without her consent. Again, could be harassment, so that's 6, 7, 8. Again, could be. There are lots of could be's, and that's the thing. It's so vague. But in general, what are we looking at? So those 3 aren't. Let's just count the ones that are. Certainly. That one, yes, as long as we're actually talking about active kind of invasion of privacy and things like that. Made a comment, no. Touched, no, that's physical communication. Yes. So that's what, 6 so far? Insisted on taking her out, no, not generally, unless it's again systematic. Tried to hook up, I mean that again isn't. Manipulated, no. Threatening, yes. So that's what, 7? Yeah. Depending on the situation, no, but also could be. But we're going for the ones that are definitive. No, not necessarily. Again, if she's depends on the environment. Like if she's a model and she's hot, that's her job made, right? That's why you would offer her the job in the first place. So that's again nuanced. So no. Again, dick move, not harassment. Dick move, not harassment necessarily. I'm like, we're at 7 that just are. Yeah, so we're at 7 of what? How many? How many things have we got here? 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, 36, 37, 38. So we've got 7 of 38 here that actually like just straight up qualify. Yeah, actual invasions of privacy, actual like stalking and harassing behaviors, but otherwise in stuff that actually constitutes crime. Otherwise, it's in regards to the way it's written here and the way it's put forward by Buzzfeed, by Maria Gonzalez, it's so broad that it doesn't, and it literally can't, unless there's more evidence to it, unless there are more specifics, in which case you cannot like slap everybody with a brush, tar everyone with the same brush, just on this. Anyway, how long has this taken me to do? Almost an hour. Right, I'll leave it there then, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the video tomorrow, which hopefully won't be as daft as this one. Take care. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, then please drop us a like, share this video, and subscribe for more. And I'll see you in the video tomorrow. Take care.